Welcome to Channel's Global Headquarters. This is your Business Morning this Thursday. I am Osun State. Let's get the show started. You need to listen to this, and things getting a little bit tough in Nigeria's financial services industry. So we have a number of financial services companies going down. This is going. Some are gone. Now the financial regulator is giving notification that others are going down. The Central Bank of Nigeria has given notice to revoke the operating licenses of 154 microfinance banks, 6 primary mortgage institutions, and 22 finance houses, some of them already in voluntary liquidation. 13 are failed to recapitalize to regulatory levels. This is how it all stacked up. In the microfinance sector, 62 of these MFBs have already closed shop voluntarily on their own because they couldn't cope with the business environment. 74, according to the central bank, are insolvent, meaning they can no longer stay as a going concern. 12 of these 154 microfinance banks are terminally distressed, and 6 of them are already in voluntary liquidation. They've already turned themselves into the central bank. This is our licenses. We're going out of business. Do a summary total, get a calculator. That's 154 that will be out of the street. Look into the PMI, and that is where you find what you call the primary mortgage institutions, or what you call the mortgage banks. 6 of them are going out of business, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Accord Savings and Loans Limited is based in Lagos. Accord Savings and Loans is based in Anambra State. Transatlantic Savings and Loans Limited is a primary mortgage bank owned by the Bayelsa State government. In Delta State, Royal Savings and Loans is going out of business. And also in Lagos, Amex Savings and Loans, as well as Supreme Savings and Loans. That's the state of the industry, financial services, as we speak, in the microfinance banks, in primary mortgage banks, and in financial houses, business in general. Of course, today is a very key day on Nigeria's political agenda. Right now, we're giving you an update on the governorship election rerun in Osun State, southwest Nigeria. Accreditation of eligible voters and voting is going on as we speak. Shewa Kimbaloye, Channel's political correspondent, is live to us from Osogbo, the state's capital, is bringing us up to speed. What do you know at this time, Shewa? Good morning. And how is this process going on?
Good morning, Bosin. It's a wet day here in Osogbo. I don't know what it looks like in Lagos, but not only the fact that it's a wet day, it's a decision-making day for the people of Osun State. So a lot of reactions are coming in from voters. They're reacting to this process. And you will not find this kind of scenario playing out at every point. You get to just about 7 areas across the state where the supplementary election is happening. Just less than 3,000 votes are up for grabs today that will determine who will govern Osun State for another 4 years. So you have a queue of people on my right, and just behind the camera, you have long queues of voters also waiting to cast their ballot. So this is where you find the voters voting. And the old, the elderly, the young, the agile, and the feeble, all of them are turning up for this exercise. It's crucial, bossing, you know. Money is involved in all of this. And when you're talking about business and economy, you have to look into the details of politics and election. And this is very important, perhaps, to the people of Osun State. It's a critical election for Nigeria, a test case for the 2019 election. Take a look at a panoramic view of what is happening here. Different scenario playing out altogether. There's been arrests that have been made earlier today. And I tell you, in several areas from Orolu to Ife and down here in Osogbo, we're covering, we have our eyes on the situation for you. You can see the different voting points here, and we'll put our radar on them until this exercise ends at about 2 p.m. today, Bosin.
Osun State was where I was born and raised my early life, and I was aware when I was a kid during the 1979 elections of the late Chief Awolowo and the rest, the NPN and UPN and other political parties, PRP back then. Osun State is one politically enlightened state. This is a state, I'm sure you know that already, shown that folks are well enlightened when it comes to political and governance issues. So people here take voting very seriously, and they want to exercise their rights when it comes to who leads them at all levels of government. So that I give that to Osun State. In terms of the arrangement, do you think it's all going well on the side of the INEC and on the side of the security agents? We can see the police and the soldiers there making sure everyone behaves themselves and make sure this process go on as smooth as possible.
All right, Bosin, you know, this election is happening in pockets of centers, just about 7 of them. And I told you earlier, it's just about 3,000 votes up for grabs today. So in terms of the preparations of INEC and the conduct from INEC point of view, it looks so much that they have all things tidy as far as we know for now, because from the election, the major election, which happened last Saturday, in terms of the punctuality of INEC ad hoc officials to election and the opening of the polls, it was very much on time, and it did happen here today. Talk about INEC being punctual. The voters were even more punctual. A lot of them were here earlier than scheduled. The polls are supposed to open at 8 a.m., but a lot of the voters were here as early as 7 a.m. Interesting thing, Bosin, is the fact that the kind of anxiety and enthusiasm that you find in the voters, it rained today, and a lot of these voters are drenched in the rain. They're waiting in the rain. They are still on the queues. And you can see the kind of verve that you find in an average voter. Osun people are dogged when it comes to politics, and this election, they are not leaving anything to chance, and that's why this election is very critical. It will determine who will be the governor of Osun State for another 4 years. You remember, 350-something votes separated the top 2 candidates in this race, and today we'll find out who wins.
Yes, Sheon, thank you very much, and that's part of politics today. The Osun State election rerun in 7 words. So let's move on with back to the world of business. The African Development Bank has launched its potato value chain support project in Plateau State. That was on Wednesday. Plateau, according to reports, was among 10 poorest states of Nigeria with over 70% poverty rate. But the state is now focusing on agriculture to transform its economic fortunes. The project, being partly funded by the EFDB, was looking to create employment, wealth creation, and help food security, as well as increase the income of smallholder farmers and rural entrepreneurs in Plateau State. According to the project report, about 40-page document released by the EFDB, 11,500 households in Plateau State will be direct beneficiaries of the new potato value chain support program, creating 60,000 jobs along the value chain corridor, with a target of 50% of these beneficiaries as women. So how does it come up? How much does it cost? The total cost of this project, according to EFDB, net of taxes and customs duties, is about 4.096 billion naira, comprising, of course, of local currency and foreign exchange input. The EFDB group will be contributing $11.2 million in loan support for this potato project. Plateau State will be bringing $1.54 million to the table, and the beneficiaries will have $154,000 in contributions. So what's the contribution of the market yesterday? 1 day forward, 1 step forward, 1 step backward. We went back to the trenches yesterday. Let's get to the details of this and other market stories of the day, which finished with Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent, live to us from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Temple, good morning. It's good to see you. One day is sunshine. The next day is raining.
Right, Bosin, good morning. Thanks for this opportunity. Yes, so Yesterday was really negative for the market, 0.46 basis points. That's mainly by the drag we saw on some of the mid to large cap stocks. Basically, Dangote Cement, which was gaining in the course of the trading session yesterday, suddenly fell fell southwards as a result of some profit taking by some investors, and we ended up dropping some 55.1 billion naira in terms of the equity capitalization yesterday to 12.03 trillion naira, while the index came in at just 32,963.27. You also got the volume of the units of the trades yesterday coming in at 172.19 million units for a value of 2.05 billion naira after investors did some 2,866 deals there. In terms of the sectoral performances, you got Zenith Bank helping the banking sector alone to do 1.86% now. Zenith Bank rose some 4.65% yesterday, with Fidelity Bank, that was at some point the most actively traded in the market, rising some 3.03%, as well as Guarantee Trust Bank, which rose 1.35%. All other sectors fell southwards. Consumer goods sector dipped some 10 basis points after NASCON, Flour Mill, and Nigerian breweries made some losses yesterday. In the industrial goods segment, you got the huge loss that we saw on the part of Dangote Cement, some 2.38% decline there in its share price, as well as CCNN that lost some 0.84%. Bringing the index down some 144 basis points yesterday. The insurance sector yesterday fell to the negative territory as against what we saw in the preceding session, but the oil and gas sector was marginally down 0.04% on the major loss that we saw on O&O, which dipped some 0.95%. We saw gains in Total PLC as well as Eternal PLC. In terms of the energy markets now, you got Total rising some 0.61% after just 27,772 units of its shares were traded, and Eternal Oil rose some 83 basis points after 526,624 units of the shares were traded. You got trades in some of the other major stocks that we have there. Talk about Corn Oil, Forte Oil, 11 PLC, but all of these trades were unable to move the prices, whether upward or downward. And let's go now to the NASD OTC, which is the unquoted securities market, where the USI, the unlisted securities index, now has continued to maintain its reading at 710.30 points. It was flat yesterday, been Wednesday midweek. Market capitalization was also flat, doing some 480.68 billion naira. We saw a decline in the level of volume activities by some 94.13% after volume came in at just 67,503 units of shares. Value was just 884.05 million. Ensure PLC, Mascom, and Union Bank Properties were some of the major trades we saw there. At the fixed income market now, we got a bit of bullish sentiment yesterday at the bond side of things. Yes, there was an auction yesterday, and we saw significant subscription in the bond auction. You got the 2028 bond being receiving the highest sale after we saw movement by some 250% there. If you look at the clearing rates yesterday, came in at 57 basis points above the previous auction that we had last month. But at the secondary side of things for bond markets now, you got a relatively flat yesterday. Yields compressed marginally by some 2 basis points, and you had the slight buying on the securities dated 2021 through to 2027, and of course the 2034 yesterday. For the fixed income, for the treasury bills market, that was also really flat. You got further sell-off on the shorter end of the curve for the securities dating October through to December. You had a bit of sell-off there, while you then had slight buying interest rather, in the mid-tenor securities, talking about the likes of January to March for 2019. Yields stayed relatively flat at some 12.97% yesterday, and the outlook for today is that things will continue to remain like this, as it is becoming more necessary for the CBN to conduct more OMO auction, just to be able to stifle buying interest as things are going, Bosun.
Tempo, thank you very much. A bit of that, of course, when we tend to take a break. Tempo Ashaju, live from our studios at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We'll give you a bit more on the board side, in particular, as we see yields rise. In case you're not in the market, you may need to have an idea of what is going on around this market. But so far as to say that yields are hiking again. This is just the day, the morning after the MPC Tuesday decisions. Let's take a break. We'll be right back in 2.